Rochford District Council is proposing new rules for members posting things on sites like Facebook and Twitter. Some councillors say they're unhappy about it, though, because they feel it's a breach of their human rights and breaks the spirit of democracy. We've asked the council for a statement on this and are waiting to hear back. And Sadie will be talking more about this in just a few minutes' time on BBC Essex.
But next, do we need to crack down on the councillors and MPs who pass comments and criticisms on social media? We meet the Essex councillors who claim they are being gagged when it comes to freedom of speech. But what do you think?
You're listening to Sadie 9. Call 0300 200 40 41. Tweet at BBC Essex. Text 81333 and start your message with Essex. BBC Essex.
Coming up to 7 minutes past 7 o'clock. Only last week we were talking about the Twitter spat between Donald Trump and Theresa May, which threatened our special relationship with the US. Well, so many of our politicians now use social media sites like Facebook and Twitter to communicate and pass comment. But should they? Would you rather your politicians stopped the tweets? 0300 200 40 41. Rochford District Council has upset councillors by proposing a new policy outlining what they can and can't post online. Leaders of two parties say the new rules restrict their human rights and go against democracy. John Mason is the leader of the Green and Rochford District Residents Group, and Neil Hookway is leader of the UKIP group, and I'm pleased to say they're both joining me now. Good morning, John and Neil.
Good morning.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. John, first, what exactly is Rochford District Council outlining in this new social media policy? What are they saying?
It's an amended social media policy. It hasn't been touched for 4 years. When it was put in place, we were consulted as members, and I did manage to make some changes to it. There's been no consultation this time at all. Basically, it says that I can't say anything anywhere online which anyone thinks is unreasonable or negative, because it lowers the reputation of the council. And if I do, I could be hauled before a hearing where I could be found to have breached the Standards Code, which is a kind of law. And obviously that will affect me very badly in all sorts of ways. Who's going to want to vote for someone who's been found guilty of breaching standards? I think we've all heard some graphic tales about what standards are, and what will that mean in the minds of people. Their imaginations will go wild. The council says it doesn't want to hinder me. I have contacted the council and I've pointed out where this amended policy does affect me in the way I can represent residents and, in fact, politically campaign. They say it's not the council's intention. But the words are clear enough, Sadie. It really is. And unless I want to take a big risk, I'm gagged.
So Neil, let's bring you in, if I may. I'm hearing that, but isn't the council just doing what businesses do and just protecting the council?
Well, the thing is that we are not employees of the councils. We are elected representatives of our community, and therefore what might be appropriate for employees is not appropriate for us as members. Our task, first and foremost, is to represent our residents and our community, and therefore we shouldn't have restrictions on our ability to do that.
Do you worry this could set a dangerous precedent?
Well, councils obviously communicate and they share sort of like ideas on policy and wording to do with policy. So if this could be used as a precedent by other councils to bring in similar types of policy.
And also, I mean, where does it go? What would you want to see changed? How could it be changed to make you happy?
We are governed by legislation, and obviously Article 10 of the Human Rights Act 1998 covers freedom of expression. The policy should make reference to that so that people understand that you can't make dubious claims against councillors in relation to the wording that's already there. So it should really go through a process of scrutiny. And what John Mason has stated about this going through the Standards Committee to be scrutinised is an appropriate form to take this.
So, John, what are you doing about it? I mean, what about your social media profiles?
Well, I've undertaken a kind of experiment. I've actually been to my Facebook profile and I've deleted everything that says I'm anything to do with the council. So I'm trying to put a profile up that says this is only me personally, but I've got some doubts as to whether that's going to be completely effective because people know I'm a councillor. I've been an independent councillor for 17 years. It's not as if I can divorce myself from the fact that I am. So even speaking personally, people are going to associate me with what I say. And more particularly, though, they actually want me to give an opinion. In fact, when I first came across social media, I mean, I wasn't a great fan of Facebook when I first thought about it, but I came across it in 2006. And I was really surprised to find residents were, in many senses, quite upset with councillors. More particularly, they weren't listening to them or even actually expressing their opinion on how they would be representing them. So, toe in the water, as it were, in a very difficult group, I actually found that they'd come to respect me more if I was there and giving my opinion. And if the opinion was critical of the council, then that often was the way they felt. So,
but don't a lot of the public, though, get fed up of people criticising each other, whether, parties criticising the other side, the parties, MPs criticising MPs, councillors criticising? They just want people to get on and run the country as well as possible.
There are lots of subjects on which we agree cross-party. Formal criticism to the council, to the cabinet members and the council as a whole. So, it's not a case that we're at each other's throats all the time. However, we need to have a functioning democracy at national level and obviously local level. If you don't have a functioning democracy where you can have opinions put by opposition councillors, then what's the point? We might as well not be elected.
John, I thank you very much indeed. John Mason, final question, if I may, for Neil. When you see what Donald Trump does on Twitter, can you see why some people might welcome politicians keeping quiet?
Well, I mean, the thing is that at our level, people are more interested in what you're doing for them and what, the particular local issues that you're looking to try and promote on their behalf. So, there is situations where, that can get quite fraught and you can get quite strong arguments on both sides of an issue. But we are really focusing on what people, what really matters to people in their communities. And that's really what it's about.
Neil, thank you very much indeed. John Mason, leader of the Green and Rochford District Residents Group, and Neil Hawkway, leader of the UKIP Group. Thank you very much indeed. Joining me next after the travel will be Steve Kuncevich, who is a partner at the law firm BLM, an expert in social media law, and he can tell us where the law stands on this as well. Very interesting. But what do you think as well? What's your thoughts on this? Do you want your councillors to, they're saying, be gagged, but do you think they should just toe the council's line? Because, even though they're not actually employees, they're representatives. Or do you think they should be allowed to say what they think? So this is social media. There we go. New social media policy at Rochford District Council is overly restrictive. Many residents want to engage with their councillors via social media, and this will impede them in their role, says Councillor James Newport. Thank you very much indeed for that, Councillor James. By proposing a new policy outlining what they can and can't post. Well, Steve Kuncevich is a partner at the law firm BLM, an expert in social media law, joins me now. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Steve.
Good morning, Sandy.
Have you seen anything like this before, regards a district council?
Well, we work with businesses all the time and suggest to them that they're better off looking at a social media policy rather than not having one, because, like it or not, their staff will be active on social media, and it helps to build good practice. It helps to set rules out for what happens when things go wrong. And certainly we're seeing the electorate engage increasingly over social media as well. So this is the way it's going. But I think the issue that we've got...
Oh, don't tell me we've lost Steve. He's been patiently hanging on there. Oh, dear. We're back.
Can you still hear me, Sadie?
Sorry. Yeah, we can hear you now. We'd lost you for a bit.
No, sorry about that. I think the issue is that this social media policy, particularly with this council, is being treated as if it were a business, and the councillors do have a very specific position. So what you've got to balance is the risk of things going wrong with the potential reward of engaging with the electorate an awful lot more effectively.
Absolutely. And you can understand then probably why the council has taken this action, but are they allowed to do that with people who aren't employees?
Well, I think the issue is that councillors will have some kind of regulation, some kind of ethics policy, some kind of standards that they have to adhere to. And the argument would be that if they're going to behave a certain way online, then it may should be treated the same way as it would be offline. But as I say, they occupy a little bit of a different position to employees, and I do think that needs to be taken into account, because they will have to express themselves a certain way and also hold the council to account if necessary.
And what are the pitfalls faced by people in public office using social media? I mean, I work for the BBC, and it's quite strict as to, you've got to be careful with what you put out. Obviously, you can't do anything that could be offensive, etc. And you agree to that because you're working and you are the face or the voice of your local BBC. So what are the pitfalls in public office of using the social media?
I think the biggest pitfall is that we live in a 24-hour news cycle. And if you look at the example of the last few days, Nadine Dorries made a statement about how MPs regularly share each other's passwords, and the Information Commissioner, that's the privacy watchdog for the UK, said that that's a terrible idea from a cybersecurity point of view. So news is more often than not being made on social media quite quickly these days. People need to be aware of the fact that they are visible all the time, and that you might try, as the previous council referred to delete posts from the past, but the reality is that people may have screenshotted that, and it may be, if you're time capture of things that you've said and done that you may have done when you thought very differently. We see this with YouTube influencers a lot, that then come back to haunt you years later, because unfortunately the internet and social media tends to have a very long memory.
It certainly does. Once you press send, that is sent forever, really, isn't it? As much as you try to delete. And what do you make of Trump? Is he brought in a completely different era now, or of politicians using Twitter as he does?
I think there are two sides to it. Donald Trump was obviously a personality in his own right before he ever came into public office, and had a very, very large Twitter following, and that's followed him all the way into the White House. I think the rest of his administration uses it very differently. And like it or not, from Twitter's point of view, you can argue that what he does on Twitter has actually brought them quite a lot of relevance for a longer period of time, when there's a lot of questions being asked about how sustainable that platform's going to be. So I think it is just the way of the world. It is a way that everybody tends to communicate with each other now, and it behooves politicians and any kind of business anywhere to take account of these new ways in which people communicate with each other and make the best you can of the opportunity.
And finally, Steve, have you got any interesting case studies?
There's lots of them, but unfortunately I can't talk about too many of them.
Oh, what a nuisance. Go on, tell me no one's listening, only my mother at times, and my husband possibly.
if only that were true, Sadie. I mean, there's lots of them. There's examples, for example, of the employment cases where somebody was unfriended by their boss and tried to claim unfair dismissal, I think it was. Lots of examples where members of staff at supermarkets have been involved in the things on social media and been dismissed as a result because of that. There's all sorts of examples of it going on normally through the employment tribunal. And I think more often than not, the law is struggling to catch up with the advance of technology, and it always will be, because just as you get your head around one platform, there will be a new one for you to get to grips with.
Certainly will. Steve, thank you very much indeed for joining us. I love that. Defriended by his boss. So claims unfair dismissal. That's fantastic. So social media, over to you. Do you use it? 0300 240 41. We did ask Rochford District Council for a response, but they didn't come back to us.
You're listening to Sadie 9. Call 0300 200 40 41. Tweet at BBC Essex. Text 81333 and start your message with Essex. BBC Essex.
So what's your thoughts? Do you use social media as well? And do you look at it? Would you want your district councillor, your MP, your representative in any shape or form to be able to voice their opinion and not feel that, oh dear, I've got to be careful what I say? What do you think? This on Twitter.